I would say push as hard as you can, right? Make people uncomfortable.
Hello, welcome to Hired the Podcast. I'm Travis Miller, and today I'm pleased and excited to have with me today Jesica Chavez. Jesica is the CEO and founder of Robo Success. She began her career in engineering and manufacturing, later transitioning into customer success and marketing within the robotics industry. She's a passionate advocate for diversity, especially increasing female and Latino representation in tech and robotics. Jesica, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Travis. Thank you so much for having me. Very excited, to share here with your audience. So looking forward for this conversation.
Me too. Pleasure, giant pleasure to have you here. And an incredibly interesting journey that brought you here today. Talk to me about starting that journey from studying engineering in Mexico all the way to now, founding your own organization, supporting marketing and brand development in the robotics and automation space. What was the journey like from where you started to where you are now?
Well, I will say that I start actually from when I was a kid. My dad has a few shoe factories. So I remember from being very little, 5 years old or so, have to go with him and his factory and realize how they were doing shoes, right, for females and going to business trips with them. I remember my summers were doing business trips, right? It was the vacation time. And definitely I get involved at very early stage in very business conversations. And I was always curious to see, at that time it was very manual, the process of doing the shoes. So I was always curious, what could be used to improve this manual process, right? What can be done better. I remember also the smell of the glue. It was awful. So I say also it needs to be some safety measures, right? So there were a lot of questions that I remember being sitting at my dad's office that he was always curious as a child. But one interesting thing is at that time having an engineer in my family, no one was an engineer, right? So nobody will tell me, oh, this is done by an engineer or you need to have this or that. My dad was a business person and that was it. Very smart. He's very smart, but not in engineering background or so. So when I was starting high school, I had the opportunity to have a technical career also, which it was in software and accounting at the same time. And I remember the teachers were like, oh, you are good at this, you should do this. And teachers telling me what I was good at and what I should pursue. But again, I didn't have a lot of role models. I know that I wanted to become a business owner at some point because that's what I learned from my family, but not necessarily just to do a business and that's it, right? I wanted to have a background career and something that was making sense. And when I started learning about the engineering career, that was making totally sense to me. But again, everybody was telling me, well, that career is more for men. I don't think your profile really fits on it. I like to be very fashionable. So people will say that they will make fun of me, that they will not really give me the respect or things like that. And then I love math. I was super good at math, but for some reason I was feeling like, oh no, but being an engineer, that will need more math than other careers, and probably I'm not that good at that kind of math. And again, it was very hard to try to find somebody to really ask about it. Again, in my family, they were like, why do you want to go into college, right? You can start a business, you know how to do it. You just go and do it, right? You don't need a degree. But I knew it that I need to do something else. And I found this guy who was ending his career in industrial engineering and started talking about his thesis with me. And I remember that I was like, that's what I want to do. That's, I want to understand how a product works, how can you improve a process, how can you make things better and implement it. Because at that time, when he explained me his thesis, all the questions that I was having while sitting at my that office, suddenly it's like, oh, there is a career that can help me to get those answers and help to improve that. And I started doing a research, and then I actually got a scholarship immediately as I started applying some universities. And again, the fear came to say, can I hold this scholarship? What about if I fail, right? I don't want to get in debt. I was founding the career with my money, and I was afraid of getting in debt or failing, right? Um, Again, I heard a lot of opinions like why a woman wants to be
Hmm.
engineering, right? And I did it. And I remember the first days when I start classes, people were looking at me like I was coming from another planet. It
Hmm.
was like, are you sure this is the room you're looking for? Marketing building is in the other side. And I get a lot of comments about it. And it was a very interesting journey. Of course, ended up being amazing at the end, right?
Hmm.
Of course, we were like four women in my career at that time. And I would say the guys ended up adopting us in some way. Of course, we always hear jokes and things like that. But guess what? I was the best in the class. I
Hmm.
got the best degrees and the best grades and so on. I'm very excited. And I had the opportunity to work for one professor actually who immediately invited me to work for him. He was doing a lot of consultation in manufacturing. So I went and worked in different manufacturing companies doing implementation of better process, right? All the process, doing quality assurance, and very, very involved in the manufacturing industry. But again, growing with a business person and be always in contact with people, it made me realize when I was building this process that one of the challenges, it was not just to come up with the idea of how to improve something. It was also the need of implementing new technology or people to change the way they were doing it. And that was a barrier, right? Especially for operators or for people to understand that there were things that they can do better instead of using the manual work. And it's when I start getting in love with this journey of becoming the customer success,
Hmm.
because it was like, okay, I need to help these people to implement the technology, to understand that technology can improve the process, and not just to talk about the process, not just to create it from the ground and very in the back end, but really be more hands-on and help the people to integrate the technology. So I switched a little bit there and I started working for technology companies and software companies as well to help them to do this realization of the value with the customers. And that also helped me to learn that marketing was having some failures on how they were bringing us their customers, right? What was the idea from how they were selling a product versus what the customer was expecting versus what the value delivery we have to give. So that's how I long story short, went from engineer to start working in customer success and marketing.
I'm happy that you can laugh about your experience growing up and in college with people questioning why would you want to go into engineering? The marketing buildings over that way. Are you sure you're in the right room? But I still find it incredibly sad that we're not very far removed from that. And I'd imagine there are still lots of young women and other people that are underrepresented in engineering and manufacturing that are experiencing something very similar on a daily basis. What do you tell young people and young women who are interested in this career? And it's so difficult to get people interested in this career at a young age anyway, that there are people who are showing interest at the early stages of learning and development, and then people are just shoving them down saying, are you sure this is right for you? You don't want to go do that. What do you tell these young people who are showing an early interest and aptitude for engineering and manufacturing that might be hearing it from little birdies chirping on their shoulder that I don't think you can do this?
First of all, if you really want to do it, just do it, right? Don't look for the approbation of anybody, because you will always hear the opinion. Everybody has a better idea and a better opinion, right? But if you let your life take the decision based on that, then it's going to be full of bad decisions, right? Really, in reality, because at the end, you are not going to feel fulfilled. I don't regret at all being an industrial engineer, because not only when I work in manufacturing, I learned and love it, but also from there, I realized that there was another part of that journey that I can add more value, right? And sometimes going into one career, it opened up also other doors. And one of the things I also never regretted is when I have to move to United States. I moved more than 10 years ago. It was super easy for me to get a visa and to get a work position. Why? Because engineering from Mexico had a special partnership, I would say, with the government, that we can get immediately into the workforce. So when I think also about that, like what I would do if I was not an engineer, what I would do if I didn't, follow what my heart was saying at that time, what my passion was saying, probably, I wouldn't be having all these amazing opportunities when I moved here. And the same, right? I'm thinking like, yes, I could have done a business right from the beginning. I could just start something. I already knew how to do it and had the opportunity to do it. But again, it will be just staying there. So the career gave me a lot of more than just a job or just to go into one specific field. So for me, always with the girls that come with that question, like, oh, I don't know if that would be the right fit, I say that it's more about the doubts that we have about ourselves. The way I was explaining, the math for me was kind of, I was afraid about um, being into an engineer because math probably could be more complex than I was used to. And guess what? I love it. I was having the challenge of really solving that complex math that every day I was waking up excited to go into these classes, right? Like I was like, okay, now I'm not just learning about a specific subject. I'm also learning about myself, how I'm willing or ready to respond. Um, One another thing is like, especially with careers that majority of them are men, and I can tell you in the robotics industry, in many teams, I have been the only woman in the whole team. And I remember, especially at the early of my career, I'm super tiny. I'm 5 feet, so I'm very tiny and skinny. And I remember guys didn't want to hear from me directions, right? They were like, what are you saying, right? You are just a kid that are not even tall enough to tell me anything. But that didn't stop me for voicing what I wanted and make sure that we have a plan. So it's not just sometimes about the gender, sometimes even about how you look or how you talk or what you say or how you dress, that people sometimes put you in this box. But if you really know that you are doing what you are best at, that you're passionate about, the doors are going to be open. And I feel that's has been for me. Like, I don't hear what people is saying. I don't care about it. I just know that I want to get to that point, and it's going to do whatever it takes to get to that point, right? And gain the trust of my people and make sure that we have what we need to get there.
What's your advice for people to be able to stand up for their ideas, whether that's because they're newer in their career or they're new to an organization or they are in a traditionally underrepresented individual that is traditionally not listened to or not given as much weight to their ideas and opinions? What do you advise people to do to combat those goddamn pig-headed bullies who just don't want to listen to other people because they don't look like them or don't look like somebody who has the authority versus someone who just has a goddamn good idea?
I would say push as hard as you can, right? Make people uncomfortable, because I feel like, and I can tell you that from my culture, right? Sometimes Latinos, we are always very like to have everybody welcome and feel warm and be the nice person. Our parents they taught us also not to be loud or not to talk in front of adults, right? So we have like this mindset of like, oh no, I shouldn't say things, right? But it's like you want to be heard, say it loud, push until somebody listens to you. And also at the same time, if it's in a place that they are not listening to you, right, that you have tried different ways, then move on, and it's their loss, right? And I have done that a couple of times where it's having also showing like, I'm standing away from this table because it's clearly that I'm here just to listen and not add value. So excuse me, right? And I can use this time better in other stuff. And that also is not just talking loud, right? But even doing that is showing that you respect what you're saying or your decision, and you don't want to be around that people. And that people is going to look at you in a different way. So I would say speak as much as you can. And if you cannot speak, well, at least with your body language, you are also saying, I don't like this. I want to move on.
Well, it's a very interesting point that you make about being around people who want to listen to you and to be able to identify those groups of people that you're just there to listen. They don't value your opinion. And I'm wondering what you see the good companies doing to expand the amount of people that they can attract to their organization. Because I think every organization in their mind says, well, we're going to hire the best people regardless of who they are, what they look like, or where they come from, or what they believe in. And that might be the case for most organizations, but I know that organizations who do have a diversity of staff and ideas, it's much easier for them to attract additional people of diverse backgrounds and ideas. I would imagine that if you were given two opportunities, all things being equal, the work, the money, the growth potential, and one was a rainbow and cornucopia of backgrounds and ideas and genders and nationalities, and one was a whole big group of people that looked like me, I would venture a guess that I know which one you would rather be a part of. And so I think companies that have the diverse workforce have a bigger pool of talent to swim in, for lack of a better term. What is it that you see good companies doing to continue to diversify and expand their ability to attract a much larger section of the workforce?
So, as a customer success, one of the things I always say when they are trying to drive this strategy of culture centric, right, about the customer is like, okay, what is your customer base versus your values? And if they are also saying, oh, we want to have customers, doesn't matter who they are and blah, 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 it's like, okay, that means also your employee need represent that customer base, right? And what I have seen is successful is when the company really understand that the value they are delivering to their customers, that they want to reach to all these different people, also comes from inside of their company, they are better because they are taking care of their people inside, right? They really take care of people from different cultures, from diversity. They can very easily transmit that diversity as a brand and then get the attention of other people. So I think it's kind of that mirror where these companies are very good at doing a good strategy in the market, but doing it also from the inside. And it's very easy when you see companies that are very just one side, for instance, or are just relating to one market because the other cultures doesn't relate to that brand. So then you can kind of see like, oh, probably, well, at least now I can realize like, oh, probably really this company doesn't care either from hiding diversity and also targeting these other markets, right? So it's kind of a mirror for me.
It's an interesting experience that you have growing up in one country and working in that country, and then coming to here and working within this country, but then also working with other marketplaces. What are some of the challenges you see people facing when they are working with different countries, with different cultures that they might not be used to working with?
So I think a lot of that it could be the communication, right? How people communicate of the expectations. I have been having teams that I have across different areas, like you say, India, in Europe, but in different areas of Europe, and then in Latin America. And you have to understand that sometimes communication means very different for each of them, right? So how you communicate, how you make changes, as a management. Oh, we're gonna do these changes, how that's going to be changing for a specific person. And I remember, I can tell you, for instance, right? Oh, we want now to be tracking every minute of the person that is working on what. It is a totally okay KPI that you want to track, but there are people in some cultures that they feel like, oh, they want to watch me and they want to micromanage me, right? So they are afraid of what they are doing. And I remember I have this team member that it was a stock, right? Like, it was always trying to put a lot of hours and a lot of things to do during the day, because he was feeling afraid that it will be looking at how many things is doing per day. And that wasn't really the key, right? Like, that wasn't the goal. It was just this person who wanted to track hours in
Hmm.
general. So it's how you transmit those changes, right? And understand their culture, the way they're thinking, and what you are doing those changes. So communication could be something. Another thing, it could be even punctuality, right? I can tell you a lot of people in Latin America means, like, if you say at 2 p.m., they are gonna say, oh, I have a 10 minutes window. So if I go to 10, it's gonna be okay. Versus other cultures, they don't like that. They want you to be exactly at 2. So you need to help to alleviate that, right? Like, you need to tell the person, hey, these 10 minutes are not okay in this company, right? Because the other people are jumping in other calls or in other meetings. So you need to transmit that culture and help them to also accustom to what the company values are, or what is the best for everybody. And that is very nice to see how you start learning to integrate these different point of views, because at the end, again, if you are launching a campaign or if you are doing something related to the market, you also start understanding that, right? The way you are going to be translating something is not just going to Google and translate it exactly in Spanish. You need to say, okay, how these people think, and if these words really make sense to them, right? So probably the slogan of the brand needs to change a little bit to really target that people.
Yeah, being able to communicate is always challenging. It's probably better now than it used to be, but we used to play a fun game when Google just started to be able to translate. Is you take some piece of writing and say, okay, translate this into Spanish, and then you'd say, okay, translate that into German. You say, okay, now translate it back into English and see how close it was to what you originally put. It's a fun experiment. I actually want to do that again and see how much ChatGPT has improved that. But I bet it's still a pretty interesting game of telephone. Well,
It is.
I want to. How do you combat that when you're? What's the best strategy for dealing with what could be lost in translation when you are working across uh, multiple markets, languages, backgrounds, and expectations? What's the best way to handle that to make sure that that proverbial game of telephone doesn't really screw something up?
Yeah. Well, I always like the human side, right? Yes, I work a lot in robotics, but this is also, I love the human side, where you really need to have your one to one with your employees, right? Trying to really understand. It's not just about the one to one, oh, let's see over the list of all the things that you have to do, or the results. It's also take the opportunity to do those one to one to learn about them, their lives, right? Do they have children? Do they live with a mom? Do they live alone? Uh, Try to understand where they come from. And I would say always, I have been working lately mostly in leadership positions, but is I can say from everybody, even the CEO, take the time to understand each of your employees a little bit, right? Make sure that all your policies or everything that you are building around your culture really makes sense for the people that you are hiring, and it's being fair also for them. Because again, it could be something like, oh, we don't celebrate Easter, right? I'm just gonna say, for instance, but maybe somebody is very religious and for them means a lot, right? So how can you be flexible with that policy? I remember one of the companies, every Friday they were giving beer, right, to all the employees, and it was like, hey, wow. But there was this employee that didn't drink beer for religious purposes. How do you still make them welcome and part of the party on Fridays without make them feel like they have to drink, or if they don't drink they have to feel bad about it? So, but that comes from knowing your employees a little bit more than just about results, right? Really give the time, like, understand and be curious about, like, hey, I didn't know about your religion because I'm not sharing that, but I would like to hear more about it, right? Be really honest about it.
Mm-hmm. What is it that you see as the current state of hiring in manufacturing? Which roles are in most demand, and which positions are companies having the most difficulty hiring for right now?
Well, I see it in general in everything. And I have a very good friend that actually she works a lot in having programs to create awareness for kids in high school from college, because there is this big gap, right, in manufacturing where they don't have enough engineers, where they don't have enough operators, where they don't have enough people who knows how to operate the machines or how to do a specific labor. And I think, again, from my experience, comes a lot from not having, role models, or not
Mm.
having who to talk about. And the more we have these people who is involved in the industries sharing their experience with and be very easy to access to, the better we can have a new generations coming to us, right? Because sometimes these kids, they have many ideas of what a position looks like, right? And then they can create this kind of like, oh, that looks boring, right? But if there is no one talking to them and say, hey, I have to fix this, or I have to do this challenge, or really talk about their day-to-day jobs, is going to be very hard to do the conversion. uh, Now, for many years, again, and I can tell you from my experience, it was very male related industry, right? And it was hard, again, like, just say, for women to see, oh, I want to go into manufacturing, because immediately they will feel like, I don't want to be just with around men. So I always was creating these programs where it was with HR, right? Where it was like, okay, you're going to be hiring people. Let me be part of the interview of the process at some point, so I can be talking also with other women, right? And at least make sure that they feel there is going to be another face there. And I try to do that a lot in the companies when I see that there, again, in robotics, manufacturing, automation, there are very little women, where I know that I have been the only or the second one. And it's like, let me be there. So at least they feel that it's going to be another female there, right? And I know that I can ask questions woman to woman and make sure that we have a face that is that role model in some way to feel that I can champion somebody.
It's funny. I was just talking to Christelle Kiefer from ABB about something very similar earlier today. And it's about how do we get kids interested in this so much earlier than we traditionally do. Because, I have a 6-year-old boy and a 9-year-old daughter. And he's been playing soccer since he could barely walk, and she's been in dance every single day since she was like 3 years old. Not every day, but she's been in dance since she was 3 years old. And they're starting to introduce her to band, and she's testing out instruments and deciding which part of the band or orchestra she wants to be a part of next year, if she wants to be a part of it. And my son's begging me to play football, and he plays basketball every chance he gets. And they're learning all these things in school, but the best way to get kids interested in something at such an early age is through play. And it's not until they get to high school where they can join the robotics team and they're introduced to these things. And maybe they've got a mentor who will take them on a field trip to to automate or to ProMat or something like that. And so by the time they're in high school and they can join the robotics team, unless somebody has an intense interest in it that was almost put in them by God, like you from an early age, you knew you wanted to do this, that it's a small pool of kids in high school who say, yeah, robotics, that's some cool stuff. I'd love to be on the robotics team. But if they got started earlier, if they got started at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old and they got to play around with engineering technologies and build robots and see what they did and had engineers come speak at their school, I think the likelihood of that next generation being much larger than it currently is grows exponentially. But I feel for the teachers too, who got to learn all this stuff every year. It's changing. I mean, you have kids, right?
Yes.
I'm trying to help my daughter with her math homework, and I can't believe how different very simple third grade math is than when I was in third grade. And for these teachers now to learn how to program a robot, get out of here. It's never going to happen. So what do you think that educators and the industry, and I think a big burden of this falls on the industry to plan for the future 20 years from now. What can they do to get young kids as interested in all of the cool things that robotics and automation and engineering can do the same way that we get them interested in soccer and dance?
Yep. Let me tell you, I work, one of my first jobs here in the United States was working with a ed tech company that I love it because one of the biggest projects I was working with, it was getting champions from these big companies. We were doing videos, we were doing animation videos for little ones, we were doing songs and lesson plans all around these people, right? So, and mostly we were looking for diversity, right? So we were looking at serving a schools Title One, which usually have less budget than normal school, and bringing all these people, doing interviews, doing songs from the interviews, doing lesson plans, and a lot of crazy stuff around. And it was exactly that goal, right? I feel like if you ask right now your teacher, she will be happy if you volunteer to say on Friday, I'm going to be talking about my job, right? So imagine if you expose the kid every Friday to a volunteer person to talk about their job. At least they are going to hear it, right? At least they are going to see, oh, today, I hear about cybersecurity. Like you say, the teacher probably doesn't know anything about it, right? So how can she even explain about that? But if from young as kids you bring every Friday a different person, how many parents do you have that do different jobs, right? And you bring them every Friday to be talking about what they do, or even the companies, like you say, the manufacturing, you create a pool in your company and say every Friday 1 hour somebody is going to be talking to a school. Teachers love this. Kids love having people guests, right, and be asking questions. And I think that would make a huge impact because I just did this project. I remember in New York City, and then we went to also Massachusetts. It was huge. Kids love it. And they don't even see the people. We put the interviews, people from Google, from Johnson and Johnson, and they were like, wow. And sometimes we were asking them if they can join 15 minutes on a video call connected with the kids. Oh my gosh, you can imagine the impact because these kids, they were just, if you ask them, that was like the test we were asking before showing these videos, what do you want to do when you grow up? And it was police, firefighter, teacher, because like you say, that's why you play, right? You play a bit the police, you play to be the teacher, but that you don't know much about it. Or you can be like your dad because that's what you know, right? If your dad is a lawyer, just say, I'm going to be a lawyer like my dad, or a doctor like my dad. But when after we did 12 weeks of exposing them to this, they changed it. All the answers were totally different from the first answer. So it was again, it was one of the most exciting projects for me because it's when I realized this needs to be more than just an experiment, right? We really need to do this. And it's as a society and company that we need to do it. So every time somebody invite me for something or I can volunteer, I'm like, yes, sure, I want to do it because I know is going to say, oh, I didn't know about that career. I know I want to do it.
What what inspired you to found Robo Success, and what's the mission for your new organization?
So Robo Success comes with all this experience in being in different departments in the robotics industry that I found, especially for robotics companies that are just getting funded and getting, in the beginning, that they don't understand, oh, who is my market, right? How can I get my product out there and get a go-to-market strategy that makes sense and makes sense from every kind of piece of getting VC funded, but at the same time getting a revenue model, targeting the right person, and making sure that also the first customers that they get are adopting their technology. The biggest problem in these companies is getting from 0 to 1. And of course, then scale, right? What it means to have a fleet of 10 robots, in different positions. What it means, like, okay, now I start my business here in California and I develop these 10 robots. They have pilots, but now I need to send these robots to Arizona. What it's going to look like for, operations and marketing also at the same time. How can I target now my customers in Arizona? So I learned throughout my career that there are all these different challenges. And of course, as I started a business, I also started as a part of, I would like to share what I know about this industry and help this company that are starting from the ground to grow. And once I have a strategy and, for them, they can use the scale and keep using it until they get, wherever they want to go, right? The sky's the limit. But I like to be helping people from the ground because I know is the hardest part to understand, like, what do I need to put my robot out there?
What's been the biggest challenge in starting your own business like this?
I would say a little bit could be trying to get organized because I'm doing a lot of things at the same time, right? I would say organization always is a challenge because I like to be doing a lot of things and understanding that, I need to put priority, sometimes priority on customers. I always going to be put my customers first, but I need to understand also when to say, no, this is out of the scope and I need to focus just on this, right? So organization, I think, is always a challenge when starting a company. And then, of course, you start doing a little of everything. So you need to learn when you have to delegate, to who to delegate. And again, I feel that happened exactly with the robotics company, right? This is when I go and I say, okay, delegate this part to me. I can help you. But it's a challenge of starting a new business for sure.
That's always the biggest problem, or one of the biggest problems I see for new leaders and new founders is the ability to say, I want you to do this. I want you to do this for me, to be able to delegate those tasks. It's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge.
I always say it's like you have a baby, right? So then you have to give your baby to someone else to take care of it, and doing it is that the hard part. You're building a baby, you have the baby, say, okay, now I have to trust this person to take care of it. So it is that.
So what's next for you, Jessica?
Well, I think I see myself keep, helping in this industry. One another of the reasons of bringing Robo Success or helping robotics company as a female, as a Latina, is trying to help bring in more diversity, trying to be the face and this kind of inspiration for other people. I'm always happy, if again, when they are ready to scale and hire more people, help them with creating that pipeline and say, hey, why don't we bring more women, right? When they have ready to say, oh, we're ready to hire, who will be a good profile? I have to go and help and try to say, okay, why don't we bring more women? Why we don't bring more Latinos? Why don't we bring another people that brings diversity, right? So that's what I like.
I couldn't agree with you more. No matter what we do, I don't think there's enough people to fill all these technical engineering automation positions that are going to be arriving on the horizon very, very soon. We don't have enough people, so let's build the workforce as big as we possibly can. And who cares what they look like? Who cares where they come from? If they're smart, if they're engaged, if they're interested, if they're passionate, Hell yeah. Bring them on board. Let's get them all. Let's get as many people interested in this industry as humanly possible. So, Jesica, really appreciate it. Who are the people that should be reaching out to you, and what's the best way for them to find you?
Well, I'm definitely super active in LinkedIn, and well, whoever wants to start, a robotics company or related to that industry or automation, I hope I can be, a good source to help you to get started, mostly with your marketing and your customer success strategy, right? It's very easy sometimes to say, oh, I sell 1,000 of robots a month, but in reality ended up that all of them they never buy again, right? So that means there is something there missing in your strategy, or people that doesn't renew the subscription for robotics as a service, why they are not renewing. So I hope I can help with that, and definitely LinkedIn, it would be the best way to reach out to me.
Fantastic. Jesica Chavez, thank you so much. I really appreciate the conversation today. It's been fantastic. Thank you, as always, to Noah Cuff, our producer. This has been Hired the Podcast. I am Travis Miller. Thank you, and we'll talk to you all again soon.
Thank you so much.